Ever feel like the world of spies is just something out of a James Bond movie? Well, the reality is far more thrilling and, frankly, a lot more dangerous. Today, we read diving deep into the shadows of the Cold War to uncover the true stories of the greatest spies who ever lived. These aren't just names in a history book, they were real people who changed the course of history, one secret at a time. Forget the gadgets and the glamour for a moment. We're talking about the high-stakes game of espionage where a single mistake could mean the end. Let's start with a name you might not know, but you absolutely should: Oleg Penkovsky. Codenamed Hero by the CIA and MI6, Penkovsky was a high-ranking Soviet military intelligence officer. Imagine the pressure. He's walking the halls of the Kremlin, rubbing shoulders with top Soviet officials, all while secretly feeding critical information to the West. Why did he do it? He was disillusioned with the Soviet system and terrified of Nikita Khrushchev's reckless talk of nuclear war. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, it was Penkovsky's intelligence that gave President Kennedy the exact details of the Soviet missile capabilities in Cuba. His information allowed Kennedy to know precisely how much time he had to act, helping the world narrowly avoid a nuclear catastrophe. Penkovsky wasn't just a spy, he was a lifeline. But his story ends tragically. He was eventually caught by the KGB, tried for treason, and executed. His sacrifice, however, arguably saved millions of lives. Now, let us cross the Atlantic to meet a man who played the long game like no other: Aldrich Ames. Ames was a CIA counterintelligence officer, the very person meant to catch spies. But for 9 years, he was one of the most damaging double agents in American history. What drove him? It wasn't ideology like Penkovsky. It was money. Deep in debt, Ames walked into the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. in 1985 and offered up secrets for cash. He sold out almost every single CIA asset operating within the Soviet Union. The result was devastating. At least 10 of these agents were captured and executed. The CIA's network in Moscow was completely dismantled, leaving the U.S. blind for years. What's truly chilling is how Ames operated right under the nose of his colleagues. He bought a lavish house, drove a Jaguar, and sported expensive suits, all on a government salary. The red flags were there, but for a long time, no one could believe one of their own could be a traitor. The hunt for the mole inside the CIA became one of the most intense and paranoid periods in the agency's history. When Ames was finally arrested in 1994, the damage he had caused was almost immeasurable. But not all spies were men sitting in smoke-filled rooms. Let's talk about the Stasi Romeos. This was a devious and surprisingly effective tactic used by East Germany's secret police, the Stasi. They trained handsome, charismatic young men to seduce lonely women working in sensitive positions in West Germany: secretaries in government ministries, assistants to high-ranking officials, you name it. These Romeos would feign love and even marry their targets, all while manipulating them into handing over classified documents. Imagine the betrayal. The person you love and trust the most is actually a spy for the enemy. One of the most famous cases was Gabrielle Gast, a brilliant political scientist who was on track to become a high-level official in West German intelligence. She fell for a Romeo named Karl-Heinz Schneider. For nearly 2 decades, she passed top-secret information to him, believing she was helping the cause of peace. When the Berlin Wall fell and the Stasi archives were opened, her world came crashing down. The love of her life was an elaborate lie. The emotional and psychological toll of this kind of espionage is something we rarely talk about, but it's a brutal reality of the spy world. Let's shift our focus to another shadowy figure: Kim Philby. He's perhaps the most notorious member of the Cambridge Five, a group of British spies who were recruited by the Soviet Union while studying at Cambridge University in the 1930s. Philby was the ultimate insider. He rose through the ranks of Britain's MI6, eventually becoming the head of its anti-Soviet section. Think about that. The man in charge of catching Soviet spies was a Soviet spy himself. He was perfectly placed to protect his fellow Cambridge spies and send British agents to their deaths. He even became the MI6 liaison to the CIA and FBI in Washington. For years, he was privy to the deepest secrets of Western intelligence. His betrayal was so profound, so complete, that it shattered the trust between British and American intelligence agencies for a generation. When his cover was finally about to be blown in 1963, he calmly defected to Moscow, where he lived out the rest of his life. Philby's story is a chilling reminder that in the world of espionage, the greatest threat can often come from within. He wasn't just a traitor. He was an artist of deception who played his own side for fools for decades. Finally, we see Ant talk about Cold War spies without mentioning a mission that sounds like it was ripped straight from a Hollywood script: Operation Gold. In the early 1950s, the CIA and MI6 came up with a bold plan. They decided to dig a tunnel from West Berlin, under the border, and into the Soviet sector to tap into crucial underground communication cables. It was an incredible feat of engineering. The tunnel was nearly half a kilometer long, dug in complete secrecy. For almost a year, they intercepted a massive amount of Soviet and East German communications. It was a gold mine of intelligence. But here's the twist. The Soviets knew about the tunnel from the very beginning. How? Because of a mole inside British intelligence named George Blake, another Soviet double agent. The KGB let the operation go ahead, carefully feeding the line with a mix of genuine but low-level information and carefully crafted disinformation. They wanted to protect their mole and control what the West was hearing. In April 1956, the Soviets accidentally discovered the tunnel, creating a huge public embarrassment for the Americans. The West thought they had been running a brilliant intelligence operation, but in reality, they were the ones being played. The stories of Penkovsky, Ames, the Romeos, Philby, and Operation Gold are more than just historical footnotes. They reveal the complex, ruthless, and deeply human drama that unfolded in the shadows of the Cold War. These spies weren't superheroes. They were people driven by ideology, greed, love, and betrayal. Their actions had real-world consequences, shaping the world we live in today and reminding us that the silent battles are often the most significant. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the secret world of Cold War espionage. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest untold stories. Let me know in the comments which spy story shocked you the most. See you next time.